Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Raja Janaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajaka Ashtotara Shata Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Samstapaka Acharya His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam namaskritya naranchaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudhiraye nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. This morning we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, in the matter of Fundamental Principles of Material Nature, Text 28. Yad vidur hi aniruddhākhyam hṛṣīkāṇām adhīśvaram śāradendīvara-śyāmaṁ saṁrādhyaṁ yogibhiḥ śyanaih yad vidur hi aniruddhākhyam hṛṣīkāṇām adhīśvaram śāradendīvara-śyāmaṁ saṁrādhyam yogibhiḥ śyanaih yad vidur hi aniruddhākhyam hṛṣīkāṇām adhīśvaram śāradendīvara-śyāmaṁ saṁrādhyam yogibhiḥ śyanaih yad vidur hi aniruddhākhyam hṛṣīkāṇām adhīśvaram śāradendīvara-śyāmaṁ saṁrādhyam yogibhiḥ śyanaih śyāmam Yad. Okay, ladies, sorry. Akhyam. hṛṣīkāṇām adhīśvaram śāradendīvara-śyāmaṁ saṁrādhyam yogibhiḥ śyanaih. Yat, which mind, vidu, is known, he, indeed, aniruddha-ākhyam, by the name Aniruddha, hṛṣīkāṇām, of the senses, adhīśvaram, the supreme ruler, śārada, okay, autumnal, indīvara, like a blue lotus, śyāmam, bluish, saṁrādhyam, who is found, yogibhiḥ, by the yogīs, śanaiḥ, gradually. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation: the mind of the living entity is known by the name of Lord Aniruddha, the supreme ruler of the senses. He possesses a bluish-black form resembling a lotus flower growing in the autumn. He is found slowly by the yogīs. Purport: the system of yoga entails controlling the mind, and the Lord of the mind is Aniruddha. It is stated that Aniruddha is four-handed with Sudarśana cakra, conchshell, club and lotus flower. There are 24 forms of Viṣṇu, each differently named. Among these 24 forms, Saṅkarṣaṇa, Aniruddha, Pradyumna and Vāsudeva are depicted very nicely in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, where it is stated that Aniruddha is worshipped by the yogīs. Meditation upon voidness is a modern invention of the fertile brain of some speculator. Actually, the process of yoga meditation as prescribed in this verse should be fixed upon the form of Aniruddha. By meditating on Aniruddha, one can become free from the agitation of acceptance and rejection. When one's mind is fixed upon Aniruddha, one gradually becomes God realized. He approaches the pure state of Krishna consciousness, which is the ultimate goal of yoga. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of Canto 3, Chapter 26, in the matter of fundamental principles of material nature, text 28. Om ajnanaतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकाय चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदन्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तां सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते जयपताकस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमः आचार्यपदाय निताय कृपप्रदायिने गौरकथाधामदाय नगरग्रामतारिणे। नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते गोपीपरानदनदासे इति नामिने। नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्ता वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघायते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुदिनतारिणं। यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे Paramanandamadhavam Sri Caitanya Ishwaram Katanchana smrite yasmin dushkaram sukaram bhavet Vismrite viparitam syat Sri Caitanyam namamitam. So we are continuing with this chapter about the fundamental principles of material nature. So in yesterday's verse it was mentioned that from the false ego of goodness another transformation takes place. From this evolves the mind, thoughts and reflections give rise, whose thoughts? From this evolves the mind whose thoughts and reflections give rise to desire. Okay, so continuing with today's verse, it speaks about how Lord Aniruddha is the supreme ruler of the senses. Srila Prabhupada makes this point repeatedly in his books that, and in his teachings in general, that the mind is the center of all the senses. In fact, the Lord himself explains it like that. But this point has been very clearly elaborated upon by Srila Prabhupada. And in the first verse of the Nectar of Instruction, we, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions, quotes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and he says that the first verse of the Upadeshamrita, the Nectar of Instruction, speaks about controlling the urges of the mind, body and words. So mind is classified separately there because the mind is the master of the senses. Then you have senses there does not necessarily mean the bodily senses. Then one could understand, okay, already mind is mentioned, why is the body mentioned separately? And then the urge to speak is mentioned separately. Because in the Vedic texts and in scriptures in general, senses refer to the subtle senses. Then there is these gross senses. So then there are this sense of smell, touch, these are all considered subtle. Then there are organs which execute those desires of the senses. So the mind is, when it says it's the master of the senses, it refers to the master of being these of the sense of touch, taste and so on. Then you have the body. So if the mind can control this, then the body is easier to control. So there are three separate classifications. One is of talking. Talking is a distinct activity. So, and then one is the because Prabhupada mentioned, why is it classified as a distinct activity? Distinct because generally the mouth is associated with the sense of taste. Taste is already covered in the subtle senses. It's already covered. Taste is already covered. But speaking is not covered in that. So therefore it is classified separately, because in the functions of the senses it is the taste which is classified as taste. So therefore you have separate classification of the of talk, then you have separate classification of the mind, and then you have separate classification of the body. So therefore in the Bhagavad Gita the analogy is given of the five senses, and the mind having the reins, and then you have the intelligence, and then you have the soul who is the passenger. I'll come to that in a while, but first let me just read a small excerpt from the first verse of the Upadeshamrita. So this is as far as the mind is concerned, which is brought up here actually. This particular feature is brought up here. As for the agitations of the flickering mind, they are divided into two divisions. The first is called avirodha priti, or unrestricted attachment, and the other is called virodha yukta krodha, anger arising from frustration. So that's basically lamentation, but in its intensified form, it becomes anger. When one is not able to attain what one wants, then one begins to lament, and that turns into anger. Adherence to the philosophy of the Mayavadis, belief in the fruitive results of the Karmavadis, and belief in plans based on materialistic desires are called avirodha priti. So this is referring to attachment. So attachment is of three types. So one is the adherence to the philosophy of the Mayavadis, belief in the fruitive results of the Karmavadis, and belief in plans based on materialistic desires are called avirodha priti. Jnanis, karmis, and materialistic plan makers. So this is the classification. The first is the jnani, then you have the karmi, and then you have the materialistic plan makers. Generally attract the attention of conditioned souls. But when the materialists cannot fulfill their plans, and when their devices are frustrated, they become angry. Frustration of material desires produces anger, liking, disliking, hankering, lamentation. And so this is mentioned here also, that by meditating on Aniruddha, one can become free from the agitation of acceptance and rejection. So this acceptance and rejections are based on likings and dislikings. Hankerings based on hankering and lamentation. Hankering means for things that one wants, and lamentation is based on one is trying to what was unfavorable, then one tries to reject. But what is favorable, when it doesn't fructify, so then sometimes one think, oh, it didn't happen. And then sometimes one think, oh, it didn't happen. One not just lamentation, but one becomes angry. Why didn't it happen? So these are all the features of the functions of the mind. So Srila Prabhupada, earlier on in the purport, he says, the restlessness or fickleness of the mind, manovega, is controlled when one can fix his mind on the lotus feet of Krishna. The Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Madhya 22.31 says, Krishna Surya Sama Maya Haya Andakara Yahan Krishna Tahan Nahi Mayara Adhikara. So it's a very simple verse, but it's very profound. Krishna is just like the sun, and Maya is just like darkness. If sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Similarly, if Krishna is present in the mind, then there is no possibility of the mind being agitated by Maya's influence. The yogic process of negating all material thoughts will not help. To try to create a vacuum in the mind is artificial. The vacuum will not remain. However, if one always thinks of Krishna and how to serve Krishna's best, one's mind will naturally be controlled. So, this is the point, that the central feature of the Krishna consciousness movement, what is the most important instruction? Prabhupada says, from the Nectar of Devotion, always remember Krishna and never forget him. So this is what is being spoken of here, that the mind is meant to be fixed on Krishna. And how does one fix his mind on Krishna? By following the instructions of his pure devotees. So you have Krishna here right now. We are encountering Krishna in the form of the Bhagavatam. So this is the book Bhagavata, and it is filled with the purports of the person Bhagavata, Srila Prabhupada. So one approaches the book Bhagavata through the purports of the person Bhagavata. So then one is able to fix one's mind on Krishna. by approaching the book Bhagavata through the purports of the person Bhagavata, which for us is Srila Prabhupada. Now, as opposed to this, now if one is not dedicated to this process of Krishna consciousness, this specific process, which is to approach the book Bhagavata through the purports of the person Bhagavata, one can still be Krishna conscious, but one may not be practicing pure devotional service. What do I mean by that? Because if one is not guided in one's activities through the Bhaktivedanta purports, then what one does is one goes by one's likings and dislikings. One's likings and dislikings. So, bhakti can be performed in mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance. So, in the beginning phase of the Krishna consciousness movement, there was a strong emphasis that we should follow the instructions of Krishna. It was not very common in the days that I joined the Krishna consciousness movement. Every half an hour or every 10 minutes or so, you will hear the Sarva Dharman Paritejya verse. Very common. Today, it has become rare. I don't know whether to call it rare, but anyway, it is not as frequent as it used to be. So, solution to everything used to be Sarva Dharman Paritejya. Now, the solution, sometimes they say, first think of yourself. First, anyway, all these kind. Anyway, before I go into that, so the point being that why is this emphasized so much? Prahlad Maharaj also says in the 7th canto, he explains that when one decorates oneself and stands in front of a mirror, there is no need of decorating the image in the mirror, because by the process of decorating yourself, the image in the mirror is automatically decorated. So this is our process, that by trying to serve Krishna, automatically we are perfectly situated. However, if we don't follow the Bhaktivedanta purports, we may do it in a very fanatical sense. Fanatical sense means, I remember in the initial days when I joined the Krishna consciousness movement, so I was trying to sleep less, eat less, all kinds of things, so which is very kind of extreme. And then the temple president told me that you are completely in the bodily concept of life. I was very shocked, because here I am trying to overcome the bodily concept of life by trying to eat less or sleep less and all that, So then I said, how do you say that? It was very counterintuitive. Then he said, that is because you think you are the body. Because you think you are the body, you think you can do anything. Actually, you are not the body. So therefore, the body functions in a certain way, and you have to, therefore Prabhupada created a certain system, that you sleep a certain number of hours, then you practice sadhana bhakti. There is a whole regulated program. So that is the idea. So when one takes to Krishna consciousness, the philosophy is sometimes so attractive, then one may drift into the mode of ignorance, in the sense that, okay, so thinking that I am the body, I can do anything now. I found a new source of knowledge. So when one reads the Bhaktivedanta purports, one understands that the body is very different from the self. So, and the self has to engage the body in the service of the Lord. And that is called sadhana bhakti. It's called regulated. Because we can be unregulated either in mundane life, where one is just going by one's likings and dislikings, and one can be unregulated in Krishna conscious life also. It's not that I am very regulated, but I'm just saying that this can happen both in karmi life and in Krishna conscious life. So, if one performs Krishna consciousness according to one's likings and dislikings, that is called dovetailing. Prabhupada uses that expression very repeatedly. Just add Krishna. So that's true. Just add Krishna, which is what we prescribe for anybody who joins the Krishna consciousness movement. That just add Krishna. Because it is not possible for someone to immediately go beyond their likings and dislikings. It needs an evolution. So therefore, Prabhupada calls karma yoga action in Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is a generic word. But then you have karma yoga, then you have bhakti yoga. As far as Srila Prabhupada is concerned, he has perfectly classified karma yoga as action in Krishna consciousness. A higher stage of action in Krishna consciousness is bhakti yoga. So in the lower stage of Krishna consciousness, one begins by engaging one's likings and dislikings in the service of Krishna. And when one reaches a higher stage, then one comes to the platform. It's not based on my likings and dislikings, but what does Srila Prabhupada want for the Krishna consciousness movement? What should I be doing by which Krishna's purpose in this world? Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam, Srila Rupa Goswami is trying to establish the principle, the heart's desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And our acharyas are also trying to do the same thing. And how should I do this? When one comes to that stage of meditation, that is the platform of bhakti being freed from the modes. But then the question could come up, but are we then practicing, when I say we, I mean me, but in a class, it's not always easy to keep saying I. So I just say we. So just because that's the general process of teaching, that you just talk we. So, so how do we, so then the question comes up, how are we supposed to deal with when we take to Krishna consciousness and start progressing in Krishna consciousness? So if we look at the offenses against the chanting of the holy names, one of the offenses is to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on the subject matter. It does not say to have material attachment is the problem. It says to maintain material attachment is the problem. So we may have likings and dislikings and we may not be able to transcend it at this point in time. But if one knows clearly, I want to transcend, I want to attain pure devotional service at any cost, and that is my only desire, then one is considered to be practicing pure bhakti. Even though one is not on the level of doing whatever it takes for Krishna, one is still guided by one's likings and dislikings, then it is no longer considered as bhakti in the modes. Because we have replaced that with the idea of following the Bhagavata. We want to follow His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. We may not be beyond the stages of likings and disliking, but we want to follow 100%, whatever it takes, even though I may not be there right now. So that is what classifies us into the practice of pure devotional service. So it is possible for everyone. There is no excuse. Once when Srila Prabhupada was talking to a reporter, and he mentioned that everyone in the Krishna, how many pure devotees you have? Everyone. Because this is it. So just like a school, this is the school of pure devotional service. Somebody may be in grade 1, somebody may be in grade 10. Somebody who's in grade 1 will definitely go to grade 10. There is no question about it. So, but when they are in grade 1, nobody looks down upon them and says, oh, you're only a grade 1 student. No. Rather, there's an atmosphere of encouragement. Okay, come on, now progress. So that is how the Krishna consciousness movement has been structured by Srila Prabhupada. That one can be in any stage. One may not be free from one's hankering and lamentation or whatever, likings, disliking. But one can take up Ekeha Kurunandana with that single pointed attention. I want to follow. Every day we sing. So Prabhupada has has hammered that into our consciousness. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya. Chittete Koriya Aikya. Arna Koriho Mane Asha. I have no other desire than to single pointedly follow His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. That's what we sing in the Guru Puja every day. Just now we did it. So Srila Prabhupada has hammered that point that should be our focus. If that is our focus, then immediately Krishna takes charge. Immediately. Prabhupada writes in the preface to the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, when one desires to surrender, there is surrendering process. When one desires, okay, I want to do this, instantly Krishna takes charge. So this is what it means by saying that one has to fix one's mind on Krishna. And in general, speaking about the modes, you see, if you look at the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras, The Brahmanas are the people thinking more about others than everybody else in the hierarchy. Of course, Kshatriyas also one level lower, but Shudras are generally thinking about themselves. So this tendency to think outside of oneself is what categorizes one in the different modes. So therefore, we have to be very careful, because an overwhelming majority of all the help processes are doing exactly the opposite. They try to draw one towards oneself, and that can only get more and more frustrating and complicated. So, like, I have a physics background. So, when we go into the atomic realm and subatomic realm, initially they were thought that it's very simple. It is just the protons and neutrons and the electrons, and then they started realizing subatomic particles. Now it is unlimitedly complicated. It's not easy. So, like that, the more we begin to focus on ourselves, the more life gets complicated. It may appear, it is providing me this solution, that solution, but in the long run, one feels it is a trap. One will get more and more entangled. That's why even in the material world, if you look at research, they have found that it is not people who are trying to be successful and hoard things for themselves who are content in life. It is people who are trying to be philanthropic and trying to think of others who find more satisfaction, even materially speaking, because they are transcending the mode of ignorance to whatever minuscule extent, whatever it may be. So the whole process of Vedic civilization is trying to get us out from this platform of self-absorption. That, okay, I'm thinking about my Krishna consciousness, me. No. Instead of thinking about me, think about Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. What shall I do for Krishna? What shall I do for this? Oh, I need to do this. I need to do that. So one has to practice Krishna consciousness in that mode. And it is not an impractical mode. It's very practical. Like Prabhupada would write, with sign every letter by saying, hope this finds you in good health. So we have to take care of the body, but not be obsessed with the body. It's like, okay, what are we taking care of the body for? We should not forget the purpose, which is to engage in Krishna consciousness, practice ourselves, and give Krishna consciousness to others. So that focus has to remain very clear. Otherwise, in the name of Krishna consciousness, one can do an unlimited variety of things. For example, this is my pet peeve, as they say. So in the days that we joined Krishna consciousness, for us, traveling means going to holy places. That's all. We were told that is the purpose. Stop all this traveling. You have been traveling Brahmanda Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jeev. So Guru Krishna Prasada Paye Bhakti Lata Bir. Stop this wandering. So there is no question about going to some resort in some very scenic place and trying to chant Hare Krishna. Never. Nobody even taught us these kind of things. The only thing is considerations. Is there seva? Is there seva? We are hankering after seva. Visiting holy places is considered as a devotional activity. Rupa Goswami classifies among the top 5. In fact, that speaks specifically about Mathura and Vrindavan. Sorry, Mathura and Mayapur probably. But, yes. But it generally means the holy places where one can increase one's devotional service. So, if we go by likings and dislikings, I like very scenic places. I like very beautiful places. Let me go there and chant. But what is this? This is completely based on one's likings and dislikings. Where does Prabhupada, anywhere in any of these books, speak about all these kind of things? So I'm just giving you a very simple idea, and I know that I can be attacked for saying something like that, but that's a reality and we need to accept it. That you don't find that in Prabhupada's books, and Jayadvaita Maharaj gives a rule of the thumb. He says that if Prabhupada does not say it clearly and repeatedly, and it first came up after his disappearance, physical disappearance, whatever it is, doubt it. So we have, the way Srila Prabhupada has written his Bhaktivedanta purports, it's unbelievable. Like people sometimes think that the Bhaktivedanta purports are so repetitive. But no, if you just get into it, you will see it is so intricately woven together. So intricately woven. It's just like when you hear some, I'm not a music lover, so I like music, I appreciate music, but I'm not a music lover who can understand all the different nuances of music. But they say that people like Bach and others, these people, when they compose music, it's very intricate. Although for a common man, it doesn't appear very. So for a common mind, it may appear, what is this? So repetitive. But when one approaches the Bhaktivedanta purports with a submissive spirit and enters into the spirit of the purports, one can see that intricate. It's like an ocean. It's an ocean of nectar. He may be saying the same thing from a different view, from a different perspective, you get a different taste. It's unbelievable. So we have, as Prabhupada said, that we are busy in researching the absolute truth. Researching means not trying to find something new. He used the word researching in the sense that we are so absorbed, we have so many activities to absorb in. So let us not try to imitate what people in this world are doing and just give it a Krishna conscious touch to it. Let's follow the instructions of Prabhupada as he has given in his Bhaktivedanta purports. Then one becomes, why did I bring up that point? Because it is very clearly mentioned in the previous verse, the translation and even in the purport by Prabhupada. He says that mind's thoughts and reflections give rise to desire. It is the mind's thoughts and reflections. So thoughts, that's why the mind's function is thinking, feeling, willing. So how does thinking originate? Thinking originates by association. So association comes, so what happens is you don't develop a desire until, when you are made aware of some situation, in this thing it is like this, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this, the mind begins to think. And when the mind begins to think, it also begins to feel. How wonderful it would be, like, the days that I was studying, now it's quite common for Indians to go to America. During those days, it was very difficult. So there was that whole thing, among some group of students, I need to go to America. So it's like, so there is that, so none of us have, during those days, televisions had just come. So the only thing you hear about America is from the books or somebody who has come from there. But it's not very common as it is today to know what is going on there. But nevertheless, by the hearing process, how did the students develop the desire? By hearing only, right? You're not seeing that place, nothing. So they developed that thinking, if I go to America, then I will have a wonderful life. Then one develops that desire. Okay, so I need to go there. One starts thinking. One has all the descriptions of this thing. So what does one... in reality, this so-called sophistication of material life is nothing but becoming a two-legged animal. Just yesterday, I don't know if I should... Anyway, I won't quote names, but there is a close relative of our... so I won't identify what kind of relative. A close relative of my wife's family. They had a graduation ceremony. This is an American university. And in the graduation ceremony, after the graduation ceremony, they have to smoke a cigar. Sorry, it's not even a college graduation. It's 18 years old, So after that, they have to smoke a cigar. And I saw the pictures. I was shocked. This is education, to make someone into a sophisticated animal. This is a part of the what's it? What do they call that? Passage. What's it called? Rite of passage. It's part of the ritual. So, I was so shocked. I never imagined that something like this would be part of a ritual. Of course. Anyway, I don't want to get into more details. But so the point being that this is what education has come to be. So what happens beyond that is just indescribable. So Srila Prabhupada cuts through this whole thing, that this mind is the cause of all this nonsense. It creates so much, so this thinking, feeling and willing. So the thinking is developed by association. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada has given us the Bhaktivedanta purports, where he has given us association of the entire parampara. The entire parampara, they reside in the Bhaktivedanta purports. I'm not talking something, theoretical. I'm talking from experience. I may have experienced only a little bit. But I have the experience that when we read the Bhaktivedanta purports, suddenly all the acharyas that you have been hearing about, they suddenly come to life. They're already alive, but at least for you, then you begin to see, oh, what wonderful association Srila Prabhupada has provided us with. These great acharyas. So let them, and Prabhupada has given us the distilled essence of all the teachings of all the acharyas with this flavor. Just like Shukadeva Goswami, when he spoke the Bhagavatam, it became even more sweeter. So all the teachings of the acharyas have become even more sweeter because we have the Bhaktivedanta purports. But it is a fact that when one reads the Bhaktivedanta purports, one gets the association of all the acharyas. So that is one Sangha that Prabhupada has given us. The Sangha of the previous acharyas, the great eternal associates of the Lord. There is another Sangha that Prabhupada has given us, which is the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So we have to be very careful that our mind should only be directed by thoughts which take us in the direction of pure devotional service. Now one may say, even in the Krishna conscious movement, it's not that everybody talks pure devotional service. So that's true. But if one reads the Bhaktivedanta purports, then one knows whom to associate with, whom to avoid. So that's not an excuse. Their Bhaktivedanta purports are there. So then one has to always associate with people, especially associate with people who are more advanced than oneself. Because this is a process. One may think, okay, I am practicing Krishna consciousness. Why do I need association? We need association for purification. Plus, you may not be going at a good enough speed. Somebody may tell you you're going too slow. Come on, make it fast. You have only one lifetime. So, this is the purpose of association. So, this is our process. In contrast to what is mentioned in today's purport, Prabhupada is speaking about what the yogis do. Okay? So, what the yogis do, we achieve in a different manner. We achieve through the Bhagavatam, the Bhaktivedanta purports, and the association of the devotees. So the same thing is achieved for us in a much more simpler manner than the austerity of sitting in a forest and meditating and struggling with the mind and so on. It's not that we don't struggle with the mind, but it's much more easier for us to control the mind. Okay, so these are some thoughts which I had on this topic. So if there are some comments or questions. Yes, Vijay.
I can't remember, thank you for the class, Prabhu. I can't remember the exact reference, but Prabhupada said that actually Krishna wrote his books. Do you remember?
Yeah, I think he said that to one of his disciples. Yeah. I do remember reading that, yes.
Because it's amazing what he was able to do in such a short period of time.
Yes.
Just incredible. And it's so deep and yet so filled with Shakti. And so it seems that Krishna was Prabhupada was his instrument.
Yes.
And Krishna wrote it.
Thank you. Yes.
You mentioned earlier that we think of our Krishna consciousness. And but then you said that instead we should think that what I can do for Krishna. So can you tell in detail what this exactly means?
Yeah, I realized when I was talking that I didn't elaborate on that. Okay, when I say that, I mean that, see, Prabhupada defines the Krishna consciousness movement. He says we are Sarasvatas. Okay, so that is how he defines us, which means that one who's preaching the cult of Krishna consciousness. This is there in Caitanya-caritāmṛta. He defines who are we. The members of the Krishna conscious movement are known as Sarasvatas, and he gives a two-pronged definition of what is the Sarasvata. One, that they broadcast the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Second, they try to defeat all the opposing elements. So that is how we are defined as. So it is a given that we have to practice. Without practicing, how are we going to preach? But our very definition is like that, which means that somebody can be just thinking, oh, I just need to go back to Godhead. That's not enough. So this movement is not just meant for us going back to Godhead. This movement is meant for helping others also, to help others also go back to Godhead. So that's very, very important. That's why Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say, Pran hetu se prachar. Those who have, correct? Pardon? Pranache jar prachar. Okay. Say prachar. Okay. I'm sorry with my Bengali. So, one who has life will preach. So, preaching is a symptom of life. So which means that one can be very happily absorbed in reading, chanting and all these things and think, okay, that's it. But that is not enough. Because, okay, like Prabhupada said, one can think that one can sit in Radha Kund and try to chant the whole day or whatever. But generally our minds are so restless, it's not possible to do that. Therefore, we have not sufficiently developed the concept of selflessness. We have not developed it yet. Whereas somebody like Haridas Thakur, they are completely selfless people. So they can sit and chant. We are not selfless yet. So this practice of going out and preaching teaches us that selflessness and makes us perfect. Especially when you go to distribute a book. It really smashes your false ego. Especially when you go and people reject and you hear all kinds of things, but one takes that austerity because the acharyas have said so, Srila Prabhupada said so. So that it creates, slowly as one progresses fully in that path, one develops full selfishness. And only an actual selflessness, so only somebody who is completely selfless is the perfect preacher, at least, but we should start doing it as a duty, slowly, one by one, little by little. Whatever one can do does not mean that one has to make all kinds of grand plans, but one should start at least incrementally. Let me try to do something for the welfare of others. Thank you. Yes, Ruji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. So you mentioned about how by preaching as austerity, as a purification, we do it and then we become selfless. But I see a paradox here, because if a person is not purified, even this act of preaching may not be helpful to him. So
very good point. Very good point. So during starting on 1972 onwards, Srila Prabhupada emphasized now is the time to boil the milk, because he said that if you keep on adding water to milk, after some time you will not be able to distinguish what is water, what is milk. So it is not that this has been happening, that when we expand without having trained our devotees properly, then neither the preacher it benefits nor the people who are practicing. See, our goal, please, we should remember that our goal is to not make hundreds and thousands of people chant Hare Krishna. That is not how Prabhupada has defined our goal. Prabhupada has defined our goal as to make pure devotees all over the world. And to make pure, so it is not that, okay, I had a stadium program where 10,000 people came and chanted Hare Krishna. Okay, that's good. But what are you doing about converting each of them into becoming a pure devotee? So that is how we define our progress. It is not by the number of people whom you are preaching to, the number of yatras you are taking people to and things like that. Because even preachers, as you said, they can also feel that, okay, I am the master of all these people. They should all listen to me. Nobody can approach Krishna except through me. And there are all kinds of variations which can come up. That's because one has not been sufficiently trained to be humble. And Antardeep Prabhu, he is here from Pune. He is one of the finest temples for brahmachari training. And during the days that I joined Krishna consciousness, I remember in the temple, forget about brahmacharis, even others who come to the temple. I was a student. The only service you will get for at least 1 year is to only clean the temple and clean the toilets. Nothing else. Nothing else. As a deliberate practice. You know, that you, and similarly I remember during those days, there was a devotee who had given up his engineer job at Infosys in America. Now this is 1990. So this is 36 years later. If he had just remained in Infosys today, I don't know what he would have been. You know, so he would have been worth millions of dollars. But the point that I'm trying to make is, look at his worth. But when he joined the Krishna conscious movement, he was very intelligent. I liked to talk to him whenever I went to the temple. So I would ask him, he had just left his job and joined. He said, what service do you do? Then he said, in the morning there are classes, then I have to clean the temple and clean the toilets every day, and then I have classes. I said, anything else that you do because you're a computer engineer? He said, no. For the next 1 year, I'm supposed to do only this. Only this. You know, so this is the fundamentals of training. To teach that devotional service is absolute. Is absolute. There's no question whether you're doing some menial service or it is all absolute. That is why when people went to the Gurukul, when children went to Gurukul, Krishna was with Sudama. They are from different backgrounds, but everybody is trained to be equal there. Pandita Samadarshana, that is the purpose of education. Prabhupada repeatedly says. So this should be the training, ideally. That when people are coming to take to Krishna conscious movement, I'm not saying every single case, in general, that they have to learn that all services are absolute. I never picked up a broom in my life. For me, I never know what is this. I mean, I'm studying for my 12th standard and I should now come and pick up a broom and sweep the temple. They would say, this is going to clean your heart. Then clean the toilets. My God, clean the toilets. Unbelievable. I mean, just inconceivably difficult. But they would say, you want Krishna consciousness, do this. Okay? Then you feel totally you are hit a dead end. You can advance only if we do this. I mean, of course, I don't know if you use those kind of words, but the importance of it was so much stressed. So therefore, even when you grow up, it stays with you in Krishna consciousness. You begin to see everything is absolute. You have a lesser tendency to see something is better than something else. So this is a very important aspect. So when it is boiling the milk, there should be that focus that people should learn, first of all, that Krishna consciousness is absolute. So whether I'm a leader or a follower, it doesn't make a difference because it's absolute. Somebody may be doing menial service. I may be doing a leadership service, but it's all absolute. I hope that answers the question. Yes. Aniruddha Prabhu.
With your permission, if I can just substantiate what you were just saying.
Yes, please.
Actually, in our Pune temple, we have menial services like what you said. Srila Prabhupada also wanted to send us for Harinam, Sankirtan and book distribution, which are Dayam services, but actually they are together. So there is no leadership, but still we do Daya. So we can learn, actually Prabhupada, in the Vedic times, the brahmachari would go and beg. So now one-to-one, if we go and ask, please take this book, he says, sorry, this is with me, I have it. You are selling books, they will insult us also. So that way we become humble also, and we also learn to share mercy. So it's a thing that Prabhupada was, in the blueprint of a brahmachari, he was wanting this to happen. So in the first year of training, we want all the devotees to go for book distribution hand to hand, go for Harinam.
Yes.
And that is Dayam, still keeping the principle of menial service.
Sorry, Prabhu, you brought up a very important point. I forgot to clarify. I was looking at it from the point of view when I joined. You know, generally service, I mean, apart from, of course, these are absolute things, which even that devotee from Infosys, he was going out on book distribution. And for me, when I said service there, that point was, are you doing something related to your talent? Not the absolute activities. So nothing related to talent, other than these chanting, book distribution, going out, book distribution and things like that. Other than that, cleaning the temple, cleaning the toilet, that's it. So I was very shocked to know that he's got so much talent, he's not using his talents, that's what I meant. Like, whereas there are common activities. So for me, I was stuck in that concept that you're supposed to engage your talent, no? Why you're not engaging your talent? That was, thank you for clarifying that book distribution and Harinam Sankirtan are absolute activities which everybody has to perform to learn that selflessness. Yeah. Okay, so it's 9:1. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.